Hey, Soraya.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Jeff, we have some pretty cool guests today.
Guests?
Want to let our listeners know who they are.
Yes. So today we'll be talking to members of the band Petrified Max, who includes a couple guys that were from The Last, who band that we've talked about before, Danny and the Doorknobs, and Trotsky Ice Pick. So we'll hold off for the actual introductions until we get the guys online.
I say let's get started.
Let's do it.
Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff.
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme.
A podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, a grooviar.
Let's get groovy. Hey, Soraya.
Yes.
Like Paul McCartney and the Wings sang, "Someone's knocking at the door." I think it's Petrified Max. Let's let him in.
Let them in. Open the door and let them in.
Hello, Petrified Max.
Hey, how you doing?
Good morning.
There you are. Hey, Jeffrey.
Hi.
Is it one or two of Petrified Max?
Just one right now. Can you hear me?
Ah. Hi, John. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
All right.
So we're looking forward to finding out some more about this project. This album is something that we really, really enjoy quite a bit. So we appreciate you taking time to talk to us about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no problem. Vitus will be along soon, I guess.
Okay, great. Great. It's a little bit early for rock and rollers.
Yeah, I know he's up early anyway.
Yeah. Cool. Us too. We're early birds.
Yeah.
This is the definition of punk. You don't expect it. Here's where, right?
I should just say I've been up all night. That's
See,
that was
so very
rock and
punk of
roll
you.
thing, yeah.
So very punk.
It's almost bedtime for you, John. Almost bedtime.
Right, exactly.
We're gonna round out his evening and just like close it. John, I have so many questions. We have so many
Really?
questions.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Jeff and I have been trying to decipher the title of the album, so
Yeah.
can't wait to hear it. We have lots of theories.
That one's easy.
Oh,
Yeah, we got it.
hello, Kat.
I got visitors here.
Soraya, is that your kitty or that's John's kitty?
No, that's
That's
John's. My cat knows to stay away when I'm recording, although he never does.
Yeah, I've seen and heard your cat quite a bit, Soraya. So.
Yes, yeah, he has opinions. Look who finally decided to show up, the big boss.
I see his name.
See, the cat introed him. Hi, Vitus.
Hello, how are you?
Good to hear you guys.
Wait, so is this how rehearsals work out where Vitus shows up like 5 minutes late to rehearsal?
I've been known to show up 3 days late. I've been known to show up for gigs at the wrong club or on the wrong night. So the fact that I'm here on Shannon's computer is a, mystery.
Excellent.
We're gonna call that a victory. We're gonna check that out.
So how are you guys doing?
We're doing
Doing all right, Vitus.
Good.
Yeah.
So Vitus, I've known you for 35 years and I know you as Vitus Mataré. But when we talked to Joe Nolte, who's known you much longer than I have and can certainly pronounce your name much better than I do.
I wouldn't bet on that.
Not necessarily.
He says Vitus. So can you tell our listeners the correct way to pronounce your name?
It depends on the language, the country, whatever. I got moved around a lot as a kid, so I never stop people from pronouncing my name any way that they want to.
Okay.
So I'm used to Vitus. That's what most people say.
Okay.
Yeah. I recognize virus, fetus, beavis,
Oh,
many other things.
we won't say virus or fetus on this show.
But they might say Beavis.
And then so John Rosewall sounds pretty easy to pronounce, but when I hear Vitus pronounce it, it sounds like Wally. Like,
Yeah.
I don't get how
The
Wally
speech
comes
defect-
from.
speech defect that he has. It's just from the wall and Rosewall.
Okay. So you,
Yeah, and in the last we had 2 Johns, so we had to distinguish
okay.
between them. Yeah.
All right.
So
There is a story behind it, though.
Okay.
Okay, we're here.
Rick
We're here
Stewart
for it.
managed the band The Last when Wally joined the band. And his last name was misspelled on every guest list. John's name was. And finally, one evening, he sort of had it out with Gary and said, look, it's Wall. Got it? W-A-L-L. There's a little bit more to it than that, but it was. So it was at that point we started calling him Wally.
yeah,
It wasn't
right.
Rosewall. Gary always wanted to spell it with a D. As I recall.
That's funny. So that was Gary Stewart, who was
That was
managing
Gary
you?
Stewart. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
All the. Okay, so we have to ask the name Petrified Max. We're done trying to undo the puzzle. Tell us where the name comes from.
It means absolutely nothing.
Where did it come from?
I was doing visual art for a long time, and one project I was doing involved some sort of manipulated abstract photography, and I was just titling individual works just kind of at random. One reminded me of a Max Ernst painting called Petrified Forest. So I ended up calling the piece Petrified Max.
Ah.
And when we needed a band name, band names are tough
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah.
Right. Because it can't be, The Last is not the best band name for search engines, So, you got to kind of come up with something that's going to stand out. And, Petrified Max was kind of hanging around. So we used that. There's no other Petrified Max out there. So it works pretty well.
Excellent. Love that.
#1 in the Google search.
So can we talk
Yeah.
about who is Petrified Max? So the two of you, Vitus and John, you guys met each other as members of The Last, correct? John,
Correct.
you came in
Yep.
at a later period of time and started playing
Yeah.
bass for the band. And then you guys have gone on and done projects, Danny and the Doorknobs and Trotsky Ice Pick. Can you tell us who rounds out the band besides the two of you?
Well, Danny Frankel. We brought in Danny Frankel to play drums, who's an old friend. See, this should actually go to Vitus because Vitus knows Danny from way back. The first time I met Danny is in Petrified Max.
I recorded some music for Carmag DeForest. I did a whole album for Carmag DeForest, and the drummer on that was Danny Frankel. And there were a few other sessions where Danny was the guy that was called to come in and play whatever kind of music it was. It was awesome. He could play anything. And when we were working on these songs, we decided, okay, we're going to not bring in the whole usual crew of all of our friends on this stuff. I'd really like to work with Danny if he's even available. Just give him a call first. And he was available, and it went really, really well, and things happened very quickly. And he's willing to keep playing with us, so we're jazzed. I think he really liked the recordings as well, but we had such a great time playing with him that we're still doing that now.
Nice. And you guys had some guests that show up on the new record playing. You have a cellist, someone playing banjo, trumpet, saxophone. Can you tell us a little bit about these additional guests that you brought in?
They were people that go ahead, Wally.
Yeah. I was going to say no. We just will tell you that. Give you the longer version.
These are all guys that Johnny Bell knew. So we would say, is there somebody that could do this banjo part? I've got this song that's a little goofy, but really rock, and I want a banjo on it, and everybody, the rest of the guys gave me the puzzled look. And then, there's a guy that's really, really cool. And I can't even remember his name right now, Mr. Bo. He came down, he was awesome.
Yeah, that's Alec. Yeah.
And Wally wanted horns for 2 of his songs. And Johnny knew who to recommend. These guys, not only were they great players, but they had a terrific sense of humor. They were so cool to be around.
Okay.
And the cellist was awesome too.
Yeah.
So this is all through Johnny Bell, who put this together, recorded the record for us, and really, it's at least a co-production credit. He was really patient during all our screwing around and rewriting things in the studio. It was a great experience, and it's always great. It's Jazz Cats down in Long Beach, a guy named Johnny Bell, who used to be in a band Crystal Antlers, but he's produced a lot of bands since then.
So before we get into the record, we wanted to know, this is a really different sound. People who are familiar with your work through other bands, Trotsky Ice Pick, The Last, you name it. This is a really different sounding. So what was the nucleus of this? Like when you guys decided to come together again and give Petrified Max a musical life, what was the musical influence? Because it really sounds different.
Okay, I think
Go
these
ahead.
are songs that we knew were going to be rejected by the Trotskyites. So for me, it started with the little bat song that I really wanted to record, and getting together
Right.
with Wally and hearing him, play that lead part over. It's like, okay, this is outside the realm of what we do in Trotsky. You just keep it separate because they're not going to be into it, and there's way too many songs going on. John is currently playing. Wally is currently playing in a band with 2 other Johns in it. Trotsky Ice Pick. That band has 5 songwriters. And we don't get together often enough. We barely play. We don't tour. So there's always this backlog of material. So the odd songs that we knew weren't going to fit, but things that we were really enjoying playing, were all set aside for this new thing that couldn't be Trotsky.
Yeah, and I didn't play music at all except for the odd blast reunion for 25 years, and I didn't own an electric guitar for about 30 years, and I bought one about a couple years ago and started writing. At first, I thought that maybe I'd want to do some surf instrumental stuff, and so I was writing some really boring surf songs, and then some that didn't quite, except for the one that the least boring we're working out now. But then I had some others that were kind of oddballs, and I thought of them as instrumentals. But when we got this idea, I brought those in, and then Vitus put lyrics to them, and that was which ones were they, Vitus? Acres, and one we didn't use, Headline, actually. So they turned into something that it was completely different than anything that we'd done in any of the other bands, where I didn't really write anyway, except for 1 or 2 oddball songs. And I think over the years too, at least my influences have changed so much that this is definitely, there's no way it wouldn't sound different than what we did before.
Same as.
And we never used horns before. Banjo. That was another thing. We kind of freed ourselves to bring in a cellist and the banjo player and all that stuff.
Well, we'll do that again. I think there's more experimentation on the way here, but we're also thinking about how we could play live and who we'd want to drag into that. So it is I wouldn't call it a working band, but it's a band that should be able to go play at a bar sometime at 6:30 p.m. and hopefully we'll get to do that soon.
You know what I find so funny is, Vitus always just kind of downplays it. Yeah, we could play bar at 6:30. Last call, that we're the band that's coming on. No, this is a really solid record, and Jeff and I have discussed this a lot. The songs that you've given us, there are some really powerful tracks here, and I can't wait to dig into it. Okay, but please clarify the title. Charlie Drove North. Jeff and I have many conspiracy theories about what it is, but you guys tell us what it is.
So Soraya, you know that my 2 top picks are Charlie Brown. It has to be Charlie Brown driving north, or it has something to do with the Viet Cong.
And I think Charlie is someone that you know, or it's a dog.
It's not a dog.
Well, Vitus will talk about the song, but the way it ended up is the title of the album was really at random. I was doing the design for the layout, and we wanted to have a 3-panel insert. And so I was lining up these paintings, and for no particular reason, I grabbed the line out of Length of Rope and just put the words Charlie Drove North. We weren't going to give the album any particular title. And then we just thought, well, we'll title the album that way. But the line comes from the song, and that's Vitus's song, so he should talk about that.
All right.
There really was someone named Charlie in high school who really did hang himself. And it's not a pleasant story, but the mystery of that chorus is just, he actually drove north until his car ran out of gas and he hung himself.
Wow.
So that's the chorus. And it wasn't intended to be the title of the album. I wasn't sure we're going to include that on there. It's not the most chipper, upbeat little tune, but it's something that happened when I was 18 years old, and it really affected me, and I always felt so bad for this guy. And it's a true story.
Wow.
Yeah. So in terms of titling the record, it ended up just right. It's a little art piece, that song. It's another dueling blues guitar thing. Very sparse, and it is really dark. A lot of the songs started off really, really dark. We tried to make them more listenable, but the title is pulled from that song.
Yeah, and it's a very intriguing title, so I think it definitely works in the band's favor. Before we get into the songs, we wanted to go through track by track, if you guys didn't mind. But John, you mentioned the fact of the layout, and that you had the 3-panel layout thing. Can you talk a little bit about the artwork? You note that there's some different pieces that were used as far as the canvas pieces. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, I think we got up to 8. I'm trying to remember the file numbers. I think we got up to 18 different ideas for the covers. We were really having a hard time coming up with something. And I had in the back of my mind this artist that I knew of named Samantha Fields. And Vitus went to her website a couple times and then really focused on the image that we used for the cover. And that's sort of what opened it up. And then it was just a matter of putting together the layout, maybe pulling from a few other images that made a sort of atmospheric package. And that's really where it came from. So that's Samantha Fields. She's she's well known within Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's a great image too. I really like the visuals for the CD itself.
It was funny that we were working on record covers. Wally was doing all the work and sending these things over, and there's some really good looking ones, but they just didn't go with the music what I thought it should be. And then he sent me to the Samantha Fields website, and the opposite was true. It's like, every one of these works. It was hard to pick one.
It was a matter of picking which one.
It just kind of went with the music and the tonality of what we were envisioning when we were making that music.
Excellent. Soraya, what do you think? Should we get into these songs now?
Yes, because I thought it was brilliant, Vitus, to have this bookend at the start and end of the record. With the bat whispers, and then at the very end, the bat reconsiders. Was that intentional, or did it just happen that way?
There were 2 little patches of that song, and I just couldn't give up the instrumental one. I really wanted to keep that instrumental, and I love the idea of doing the bookends. And we went back and forth. I think both Wally and I, we changed our minds a couple of times. Is that instrumental thing exciting enough, interesting enough? No, it's just for us. Let's not put it out there. And so, as the record assembled, was 10 songs. We didn't want a long record. We didn't want to do the 100 Flowers thing with all the short songs is really cool, but it's no longer cool when you do a bunch of 4-minute songs. You're trying to jam them onto a piece of vinyl. That's not great. So we wanted to keep it succinct, and 10 songs was just the right amount. And for some reason, there was no good song to close with. And so that was just the perfect thing to tack on. I don't know how else to put it, but it's a little closure. It's a, little finale.
It really is this nice way of tying it together and giving us this very eerie intro and outro, like it all comes together. Because Jeff and I were talking about how this first track it's just this eerie melody, but it hooks you in.
Don't know where they go when the sun hits the shadow. Where in the world are they now? 3 hearts full of sleep in one big tree. 3 hearts, only one dream in a big square tree.
And then the second song, boom!
There
It's
comes
like
Wally.
a slap across the face.
There's a hole in the sky, hole in the sky. There's a fire in the hall. breaking. There's a book on a chair. There's a cat on the stairs. Everyone knows how everything goes. 100 years to build a minute to tear it down. There's a leaf on the wind. There's a bird in the hand. Everyone knows how everything goes. 100 years to build a minute to end it. There's a flame in a bowl. There's a foot on a ledge. Everyone knows how everything goes. 100 years to build a minute to burn it down. So you built yourself a house so strong. When a wolf came along,
So, Jeff, anything else about the Bat Whispers? I mean, Vitus pretty much just said it all.
Yeah.
But
So, for me, sequencing is a big deal on records. I think it's a huge art form in how bands sequence things. And I'm an album guy for sure. I prefer albums over singles. And I think you guys did a masterful job on the sequencing. And I want to talk about that transition going from Vitus's Eerie Bat song into John's Hole in the Sky. So, John, can you tell us a little bit about Hole in the Sky? And also, as a side question, can you talk to us about the sequencing?
Yeah, the sequencing, I think, at a certain point, we were thinking about a sequence, and literally I just sat down and started playing the tunes. I guess we'd selected exactly which tunes were going to be on. And I just started playing them one by one. And that was the sequence that we ended up using, so I was just kind of feeling my way through it. I always thought, Bat was always my favorite song on the record. So I wanted that first. And then I liked the idea of going somewhere really different. So Hole in the Sky. And then I just kind of crept through the tracks. And that ended up being the sequence that we used. And I always like, I like albums too. And I like albums that manage to put together a lot of disparate elements. The Beatles albums come to mind, the later ones anyway. So I'm always thinking of that transition from back in the USSR to Dear Prudence. And so this goes kind of in the reverse direction, but that's really just what I was
very cool.
Yeah.
And about the song, can you tell us anything about Hole in the Sky?
I don't know. That went really fast. Usually the songs come from just a chord or two. And so that initial, it's not really a riff, but the kind of D minor to whatever that is, that just, it's just a matter of then following the chords to the next place. So that just sort of developed fast. And the lyrics don't really mean a lot, except that Notre Dame was burning that day. So I was just kind of going back and forth between, images that reminded me of, and literally just what was around the house. So that's why there's a cat on the stairs and a book on a chair and stuff like that. And then the Three Little Pigs. Once I realized that the song was actually about, the precariousness of existence, then the Three Little Pigs.
They always show up, don't they? Don Wayne.
And the song was pretty much the way I envisioned it that first day. I wanted the horns, like Vitus said. And the thing that Vitus added was the call and response.
Don Williams was disappointed that it wasn't a Black Sabbath cover.
That's probably coming, given my taste.
Yes, bring it.
We're here for all of it. And then next comes Snowshoe. This one of the things that's so striking are the harmonies and the really sweet vocals on Snowshoe.
Snowshoe rests in the cargo hold.
we want to know the inspiration behind the song.
Oh, oh, this is a difficult one. Let's do something with buying leisure footwear online and none of it fits and always having to send it back. So I wrote it for my wife, Shannon, and we'll leave it at that. She can't believe that this, crazy limerick is actually on our record. It probably would not have been on the record if it hadn't been such a fun jam. When the banjo showed up and we started playing it with the banjo and he was dueling with Wally's lead, it was just, we got to put this song on there. I'm not writing real words for it. This is it. The words, the consonants and the vowels on that lyric just sound great. They make zero sense to anybody except, the person that I love. So
I love this song. I love this song. And I loved all the harmony. I loved everything about it. Jeff?
Yeah, it's a great one. Yeah, this is one of my favorites for sure.
Cool. And the video,
So you can let Shannon know that we love this song, even though it seems very, very silly.
you
to
guys
her.
have probably seen the video that my daughter Liv made for that thing.
Oh, your daughter made that.
Yeah. So it just kind of goes with it. It's a whole family affair, that one song.
Love it.
Nice.
Beautiful.
So we mentioned Length of Rope earlier. That's the next song that comes up, another Vitus song. What's the story behind Length of Rope?
Well, I think we kind of got into it. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but it's a young guy that accidentally killed his girlfriend. They were going to snort some coke that was laced with heroin, and she died instantly. And he ended up going to jail at first. When his family bailed him out, the first thing that he did was take the family in the car and drive north and hang himself. And we didn't have a chance to talk to him. There's nothing we could do about it. So when we put that together, we kind of put together the insensitive cop repeating every single line and making it sound like he's talking into his, wireless in the car. And then the actual just portrayal of, there's nothing we can do. We don't know where he is. All we know is that he took the car and we were told that he drove north. So that's the song.
Yeah.
Prettiest girl, a tear in her eye, slumped and crumpled. We'll never know where she died. Charlie drove nowhere. And yeah, Charlie drove north.
So you go from that
To something
darkness into power pop art to like
So wait, we also have to mention that on June 21st of this year, Rodney Bingenheimer played this song on his show,
yes.
twice in one set.
which is, what more? It's like getting the Pope's blessing, right?
Yeah.
I wish the Pope were as cool as Rodney.
What I loved is that he played it twice. And so, it's just very affirming to hear one of your songs on Rodney's show, but also to give it that audience.
Right.
Because this is way beyond a local LA station. This is now satellite. So
Yeah, we were really happy about
I
that.
mean, that was just a real nice affirmation of how powerful the song is.
Just had to leave here. Walked out of that club, said so long. It's what it brought, not what it found here. No, the greatest sights and sounds we could love. There's a moon upon him. He'll give as long as we'll take from the power of heart.
I have to say, this is my favorite song.
Oh, cool.
And I said it from the get-go.
Yes, you did.
I like this song so much. And then we'll talk about 3 Times Gone, which Jeff and I you know, slobber over also. But Power Pop Heart is a really strong driving song. I'm glad Rodney picked it. And could you tell us a little bit about the story behind this
And this
song?
one's a co-write too. So this is the first co-write.
Right.
Yeah, I think the co-writes on this are all the same, where I brought in the underlying music, and then Vitus would do the melody and the lyrics. So yeah, so any story is really Vitus's, but that's the way those
Oh, okay.
co-writes.
It's another friend that we lost. Also ended his life. So we have the song Power Pop Heart for our friend Gary. And a lot of the really great LA bands that I loved seeing, the most memorable shows were all shows when I went with Gary. So he was my friend to hang out with at concerts and stuff, and he helped the band a lot. So we want to make it a cheery song, more of a celebration.
And it absolutely is. The arrangement is wonderful on this. And the video that accompanied it?
Well, I did that. And there were a couple of edits of it, and you guys got to see an early one, and then we took it back because it was too obvious what the bands were. But I overlapped, I faded in different bands' live video that I'd stolen off of YouTube. We don't have the rights to that stuff. And I faded it in, but it became a little too obvious. But all the bands that are in the video, and there's about 35 of them, they're all bands that I went and saw with my friend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were trying to guess some of those, the clips that come up. They're so vague and they're so subtle. So I think I came up with like 4.
Right. The ones that are hard to pick out are like Cruzados and Plugs are both in there, and 2020, and of course Rank and File, House of Freaks, Wednesday Week. There's a lot of them in there. Steve in the Dream Syndicate, Dave Roback is in that. There's a bunch of people in that video. If you're from LA, it's all LA bands that are in there. Yeah. Right. And of course the Screamers with Tomato Duplantis in there.
And then we get to Headline.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of really cool things that are in this. Like a lot of I'm not a musician, in case you didn't know. But as a fan just listening, I liked a lot of the kind of stop-start, rise and fall. Like there's a lot going on musically. And then these really powerful lyrics that accompany it. Talk to us a little bit about this song, or the origin of this song.
Wooly.
Well, again, that was my, sorry, Vitus raised his hand. He wants to speak.
I pointed at you is what I did.
Well, yeah, so that was another one where I just brought in the music, and that one I really didn't have, I really didn't know what was going to happen during what are now the stops. I half imagined it just, everybody just playing through, but we really didn't know until we got together with Danny, and then everything went in a certain direction. The cello idea, kind of came in later once we heard how the song was being built up, and then once the cello was on there, that led to that one build where I kind of was trying to do a little bit of a Jeff Beck, 2-measure guitar piece. So that one just sort of gradually built up. And, to me, I don't think it would be very interesting without Vitus's melody and lyrics.
Plenty cool.
Because that just really came out of nowhere. I had no idea what was coming when Vitus came up with that. It just really made the song into something.
I gotta say that Vitus is a master with melody. Personally, just when you listen to any of these projects and you hear Vitus's signature melodies, they're just so catchy.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and those definitely come through on the Petrified Max debut CD. So
Do whatever we want in Petrified Max. I love it. There's less constraints.
It works.
all right, so next up we have more positivity from Vitus with Fail.
A really positive song.
Saw your sign along a desert highway. No room here, just run along. Hidden prying eyes are in the back of my neck. Those invisible hands keep the place in check. Lincoln, I'll miss you.
How did this one come together?
This is a little song ditty written in the middle of the night. Also about a friend of mine who's alive and well, thank you, but he's very much an isolationist and doesn't want
Finally.
anybody to ever come see him. So it's kind of an interesting song that way. And he too is an artist, and he sent me some of his artwork, and it's really cool stuff. It inspired that song, which is that he just can't interact with other humans at all. He's a very meticulous artist.
Excellent. I know quite a few people like that. All the engineers at my work.
Yeah.
It must be a characteristic of engineers. All right, so Acres up next, another co-write. So John, I imagine you brought this in.
Yeah, and we really didn't know what was going to happen with that. I just had a, whatever, 8-bar, 12-bar progression of chords, and we just kept repeating them and then building on top of it. So really, that's all Vitus putting all that stuff on. And you were mentioning his gift with melodies, but all the harmonies are Vitus. I had nothing to do with the vocals on this album. So every harmony that you hear, that's Vitus coming in with.
I would like to
with those
point out that
ideas.
Wally portrays the cop in Length of Rope.
Ah,
Yeah, I did make an appearance. That's true. I did make a vocal appearance.
Wow. So that's where the vocal credits come in on the album, right?
There's one song that we sang together. You sang on one of your songs too.
Oh, I sang verses on Hole. Yeah,
I double tracked them.
on Hole. Yeah, although my
It's
voice
in there.
is not for public consumption generally.
So going back to the harmonies, Vitus, that's something that you probably started back in the early days of the last, because those harmonies definitely show up since the beginning of that band's output.
Yeah, that song needed something that was not a melody line, but basically chords, voices of chords, and it needed to come in and flow in sheets. The song is inspired, at least I think, for me, it was inspired by the Woolsey Fire, and not Homes That Were Lost and all that sort of jazz, but that basically 90,000 acres of national and state parkland burned in that fire. And you can only imagine how many animals perished in that. And the images of, the fried rabbit just posed in a really weird position at the edge of a road, or the rattlesnake that's obviously in agony when it dies. It's standing upright and ends up fried, just stuck in that position. And the deer carcasses and everything else that we dealt with out here. I just couldn't think about anything but the millions of animals that suffered and died. And yes, the wildfires are a natural phenomenon, but this was a man-made fire. And it came at the worst possible time, and we did nothing successfully to direct it or really stop it. We allowed it to burn everything in the parkland. And so we're talking about millions of animals that perished, and it was so amazing to come and see the first bit of greenery, because the rains hit a month later. And that's when the mud flows happened up here. But with that first bit of grass, we're immediately seeing the bunnies and the deer back, and we were, you know, there's photos of bunnies that are half burned and alive and eating the grass a month later. But the birds that didn't make it because they couldn't deal with the smoke, all that stuff really bothered me. So I just put it together as an homage to whatever stupidity and the unfortunate demise of all those animals.
Feel life, wildlife, rushing towards the sea, or hiding there. Are you on the hill? Are you in the water? Are you on the sand? Feel life, wildlife.
That's terrible. Yeah, and that had a big impact on your work, right? As far as
Yeah, it did. We were doing a lot of the houses pro bono, helping people get plans approved to rebuild, and we're still doing them. And there's a lot of sad stories there too. Thankfully, there was very little loss of life, but there are some heartbreaking stories about that too. I was more affected by the stories of the animals and what I witnessed after the fire.
That's terrible.
Made for a pretty song.
Yeah, it is a great.
It's really ethereal. That song is really, the tonality of it is really ethereal. And now that I hear the story behind it.
To walk out on those trails right after the fire and just see nothing but that charcoal color, everything scorched, and just the sticks that were trees and nothing around, you know, no gopher holes left, just the little dead rodents here on the ground everywhere. To walk out until you see nothing but that and have that on all four sides of you, that is an experience. And that's kind of what I was trying to communicate in the song.
So up next is John's song. So we go to 3 Times Gone. And I think this was one, Soraya, that both you and I, when we were trying to decide what songs that we thought would be good for A&R people, this was one of them that we kind of all agreed that it is definitely a standout track.
She is melting into the chair like she was never there. She is sleeping under the sand beneath the gentle hand. He is gazing over the sea, where he will never be again. He is staring into the sun. It's a loaded gun, a loaded gun. She is melting into the chair, like she was never there. She is sleeping under the sand, beneath the gentle hand.
So John, can you tell us about putting this one together?
Again, that started off with just a little chord progression, just that first little descend, and then it's just a matter of like following it to the next place, to the next place, to the next place. So musically, that's where it came from, and lyrically, that's just about 3 family members who've died, and I guess I don't think too much about lyrics when I get started. Usually it's just an image. So I think I think the first line was literally the first line that I wrote, and I was just thinking of my mom who died of Alzheimer's and just kept fading away. And so that's my mom, my uncle, and my grandmother. Those are the 3 who are gone.
Record.
Yeah, no kidding. This is great. I'm gonna have to pour a shot into the coffee here.
It's real life, so we're talking about real life here, and
Exactly.
death, right? So John, would you say like your approach when you write songs is when you sit down with an instrument, with a guitar, and you start playing a progression, that the words just come out, where you don't think ahead, I'm gonna write a song about such and such?
No, yeah, I don't think ahead, and I don't think I ever think of a melody when I'm first writing. I'm just thinking about the chord progression and how that goes. And sometimes there's a little hint of a melody in my head, but usually not. And usually it just comes from something that's going on within the chords. So it's just following chord to chord. I'm even thinking about the stuff I'm working on now, and usually it starts with 1 or 2 chords, and then I try and figure out where it might go next, and things just get built up that way. Yeah, there's no forethought. No forethought at all. The only forethought would be, well, gee, we got a bunch of songs that are kind of downbeat, so maybe I can do something that has a little more rock energy to it or something like that. But aside from that, it's really just I have a lot of time, so I get to play a lot every day, and usually when I'm just messing around, I'll come up with a chord or 2, and that'll get me going, and then I'll go days without any ideas.
Nice. So it sounds like something gets channeled through you. That's the way that it sounds to me. Once you sit down with an instrument, something natural happens.
Yeah, at first, for sure, and then it's it's improvisational, but it becomes a pretty conscious process in a way, because I just, one chord has to go somewhere else, and it's just a matter of figuring out where it's going to go, and then how to get back to square one, or how to make a transition.
And you got a great partner there that knows how to bring things to an end and put it in a bow and complete it. So yeah,
Vitus is really good with working out arrangements once the songs are kind of in some sort of shape.
I'm not as methodical. I usually have something that I want to write the song about, and it usually starts with a lyric and a little bit of a melody. I start at the opposite end, and then it's not about figuring out the chords that go together, but it's finding 2 chords that are really odd, where there's something wrong with them or something that's missing, and take 2 chords, put them right next to each other, 2 chords that should never be next to each other, force them to work together. Okay, this is the beginning of the song, work from that.
Wow.
I like that.
That doesn't always work out real well, but
It's organized chaos. I like it.
yes.
Okay, and then can we talk about basics? So this is another co-write, but one of the things that I find so intriguing about this record is all the varieties of the different guitar styles. And I mean, there are some that are like hard rock, some that are like 70s, some that are like psyche, and then we get to basic, and basic is just like this guitar freak out at one point.
It's right there in front of your face. My, it's like you're running in place. When you can't shake it no more, it's right there. It's your
Okay, so what's the origin? Is it in this organized chaos of two chords, or is it like two chords that don't belong together? Where does this come from? And who says bye now?
Bye now.
That's Vitus, yeah.
Well, the very guitar sounds and approaches
No,
are
that-
you, Wally. Definitely. That's why this album has so many different guitar tones. John plays 90% of the guitars on this record, and they come from all different angles. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I was trying to rip off Your Blues on this.
Oh.
That's all. I don't know why, but I was trying to do something like that, but the style of playing is so different, it ended up more like a Cream song. And that's all. It was from my end, it was pretty straightforward. And it does follow more or less a blues progression until that bridge. And I think the bridge, I don't think we even had, I think we just got, it's one of the only songs when we were actually together thinking, well, what do we do next for this thing? And came up with those chords for the middle. But yeah, that's actually what I was thinking of, something like Your Blues, or what's the other one, Vitus, where he uses a little bit of a riff.
Online.
Maybe it's just Your Blues.
I
Yeah.
think.
But I played it differently, so it ended up sounding more like a Cream thing. That's what was in my head anyway. The lyrics are all Vitus.
John, what kind of guitars do you like?
On that one, on that album, it's mostly a Strat.
Strat for
A
sure.
little bit of this really ugly Telly that I have.
Mr. Ugly.
Mr. Ugly, and then there are a couple really interesting guitars that live in the studio. There's an old SG that we used a lot. That there's a kind of a Jaguar that we used on Bat Whispers. It was just pure chance. There happened to be a baritone in the studio. Somebody left a baritone in there. So that's the solo, and the arpeggio part is done on a really cheap Dan Electro baritone. They're cool guitars.
Wow. I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah, but probably the Strat more than anything else.
Yeah, I can definitely hear a Strat.
Yeah.
So Vitus, I wanted to talk about songwriting. So on this particular song, on Basic, John brings in the music and you write the lyrics for it. Do you prefer to write lyrics to your own tunes, or to have music that you write lyrics to?
When Wally brings a song in, it's kind of like when Kel Johansson brings a song in. There's a mutual interest in that type of music that inspired the piece. And so I'm immediately into that. I've tried writing with other people, and there isn't that immediate connection at the source point that inspired the chord progression or the arrangement. So it comes really easy. I like doing the mix. I like what we're doing now. I think there'd be a sameness to it, no matter how hard I tried. If I wrote every song and there was a whole sequence of my tunes, I'm better off working with another writer. And songwriting for me came as a sort of a competition with Joe Nolte, a competition that I lost. But I tried really hard to keep up with him. I was the George Harrison, hey, I get one tune on this record. But I learned a lot about songwriting from Joe, but I think what I do is totally different. And I often wanted to plug into his songs and change things instead of plug into my songs and, change them. But I like doing it all different ways, and starting with the nugget and doing it on my own, and then maybe bringing it in. And I've done that and brought an entire song to John Tally Jones, said, look, this is what I've got for a melody. He changes the melody, comes up with something. It's a very different song. So I've had the experience I think Wally has when he brings in something, and headline where it's a different song, I guess, after that. What I heard right from the get-go was different than what Wally heard. Those exchanges that's where creativity really blossoms. So I like doing it all different ways. I don't want to do it the same way twice.
Yeah, I love that. I love your answer, because for me, as a fan of music, I prefer band collaborations. So I think about 10,000 physical pieces of music between vinyl, CD,
Right.
cassettes.
Mhm.
My whole house is music.
Empty bookcases now.
But yeah. So about 90% of the music that I own are bands, are groups, not singer-songwriters, not single artists. And there's something about collaborations that I think is just fabulous. And you can hear, unless you have somebody like a genius like Prince who can make himself sound like a collaboration. But for the most part, I love the idea of people coming together, connecting together, and creating an art that's bigger than the two of them, three of them, whatever can bring on their own. So I love this aspect of Petrified Max, and it sounds like it is definitely collaborative.
The feel
work.
of the songs, I want to point out,
Yeah.
has a lot to do with Danny Frankel, because his drumming and his percussion is really sensitive stuff, and he really kind of reads what we have in mind and gives it a lot of depth. It's the most musical drumming, you know, with John Frank, it's musical drumming as well. And I'll tell you, the last was cool with Jack Reynolds on drums, but that band blossomed when John Frank came in and started drumming. This is where Joe and I disagree, but for me, the last turned into something really great when John Frank came along. And that's why some of the Trosky records are so great, is because we had Jason Kahn and we had Hunter Crowley and we had John Frank, totally different drummers, totally different aspects of that band. And suddenly actually not just recording Danny Frankel, making someone else sound awesome, but actually having him play on our songs has just been the best experience. Love playing with that guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
You don't hear a lot of props to drumming unless you're talking to Soraya.
Yeah. I
Soraya?
give mad props to all the drummers. I love percussion,
Yeah.
so I'm just
Yeah, not all drummers are created equal, and there aren't that many really great ones. And getting to play with, you know, some of the people I've gotten to play with has been wonderful.
But you know what Vita said about a drummer being musical is really is a simple but really good way to put it. You know, because they're not all that musical. They don't all always listen really sensitively to what's going on. And it does make a big difference. And I'm with Soraya. I just think that you know, without a drummer up there who really knows what he or she is doing, you've got nothing. But I remember seeing the Plugs and just realizing what an amazing drummer Charlie was, even though he was pretty understated, really. And it just it just makes everything work or not work.
So does Danny play any instruments other than drums?
All modes of percussion. I think he plays some piano. I really don't know what else, but he's played in some pretty major acts. I don't know if you've looked up who he plays with, but it's pretty amazing. And they are diverse. So it's, you know, it's not just Carmack DeForest over there, but he played with Lou Reed, and he's played with, he toured for a long time with Katie Lang. He's playing with Fiona Apple. He plays with Beck. He's good, and he's good at all of that. But no matter what you give him, what he excels at is listening to it and figuring out just what will make that sing and not overplay it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So good to, yeah, excellent. Well, we're thrilled with this new album. We're really glad that you guys put this out. Oh.
Then we end with the band the Bat Reconsiders. Hello. So we, you know, as we've been talking through the songs, I now see that there's this, and again, I think this is why the book ending is so brilliant, because kind of set us up for this kind of eerie storytelling. And as we go through all these songs, yeah, there's a lot of hyped music, a lot of up music, but when you listen to the songs, the stories are life, you know, they're all the shades of what we get. And not all of it is pretty, not all of it is happy, but it's compelling. And I think that's the thread through all these songs. And then we get to And the Bat Reconsiders. So I'm glad you never abandoned it, Vitus, because it really just kind of brings us right back. And it makes you want to go back and play the whole thing over. Really, it's like segueing all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah. So the story on the Bat, by the way, is I built our house, and we have this curved window at the foot of our bed, and it looks out into just a hillside in our garden, but we look over the canyon right there. There's really nothing on that side, but the moon is very often on that side. And there's this lone bat, and he's still around. We're always worried about him, but he's picking up all the little insects on that side of the house. So when we sleep, whenever you wake up and you look over your feet, what you usually see, more often than not, is the bat right in front of our window. And he keeps going by, and he's just there for an instant. There's always this thing in the middle of the night We worry about him hitting the house. Is he okay? He's not there for 3 days. I hope our bat's okay. And sure enough, he comes back. And then we go, I go play a gig with Trotsky, and I come home at 2 a.m. or whatever it is. I'm not going to wake up Shannon. I go downstairs, sleep on the couch. Outside that window, there's the bat. We've gone around to the other side of the house. So whatever, the song is, his perspective there. Is he taking a big risk by cleaning up all around our house? Because he's a little janitor. So I wrote the song for him.
I think you need to name the bat, Vitus, if you haven't already.
At one point he had a name, and I don't recall it, but we just refer to him as the bat.
The bat, the house bat. Every house has one.
Our personal house bat.
I love it.
Yeah.
So
Sure, there's more than one bat, but it always looks like it's just one bat. Right?
it's your bat. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So and then, so we've got this out, and Poison Summer Records. We've seen there is a Facebook page, there is a place to get it. And I like that, Rodney gave it some traction, and, I want our listeners to give it some love too. So we're going to post links to your Facebook page and Poison Summer Records, and that way people can go get it. And we're hoping, Jeff, aren't we hoping, praying, making altars, that live music comes back?
Yeah, for sure.
So
We need to see a Petrified Max
Yes.
live show.
And trust me, not 6:30 in a bar. This is like
Maybe even at 8 p.m.
Woo! But no, really, this is, is this something that, all circumstances being ideal and safe, where you give us a couple of live shows, you throw us that a couple of biscuits. And
We have talked about that, and everyone in Trotsky's off doing other little projects right now. Kel Johansson has a 2-album solo album coming out, 2 record set, and John Tally Jones is in I don't know how many bands, but a Strike Slip is awesome. I don't know if you guys have listened to those 2 EPs. Hopefully they'll play live. It's with Juan Gomez. Yeah, it's really good. You got to check it out, Jeff. It's great stuff. And Tom Hofer's doing these prog songs. I mean, it's progressive rock. It's like
oh boy,
Van de Graaff Generator meets, I don't know what the other band would be there, but it's really great stuff. And he writes these songs, and we can't, it's not Trotsky material at all, but everybody in Trotsky wants to hear it over and over again. So he's brought songs in, and we've said, yeah, we'll do that, but it never quite worked out. So he's working on his own thing right now, and he's got really great people to play with. So I think everybody's going to be doing their own stuff for a while here. And we certainly want to play live if we have that opportunity.
perfect. John, how you feel about that?
Yeah.
Playing live?
Well, yeah, no, we and like Vita said, we've been talking about how we could put this together for some live shows. But in the meantime, we're just working on the next batch of songs. I mean, I figure that it's probably going to be a while before bars are open. Looking at Texas and Florida, I think we're going to be going, 1 step forward, 2 steps back for months and months, So I think by the time we play live, we'll probably have another album's worth of material, and, it'll be pretty easy to put 10 songs together, whether it's 6:30 or 8:30 or 10:30 is really pushing it for us. But whatever time it is, yeah, we really like to do
That's
some
awesome.
shows.
And Jeff, what more can we ask than knowing that songs are in the works, that 2 chords are jumping around, dancing around in John's head, lyrics are jumping around on Vitus's brain. We're here for all of it. This is a really, really solid album. And I don't know, Jeff and I can't rave about it enough.
It's not a good time to be putting out a record. Everybody's at home doing stuff and putting them out, which is wonderful, but it's all coming as one big glut, and the record stores are closed. I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah, it's strange. At first we thought, oh, this is the perfect time. Everybody's at home listening. Everyone else thought the same thing, and I think there's so many, unwelcome distractions. It's so strange. Everybody's at home looking for things to do, I suppose, but but then there's another, cop beating up somebody, or the COVID's coming back in Texas. There's so many things to think about. And like Vita said, there's a glut of material.
Maybe our next record could be just a bit more cheery.
Yeah. We'll see.
Well, like Soraya mentioned earlier, it runs the full gamut. So it's just life. That's part of life. So you talk about real topics. So, but we love the album. We thank you guys for coming on the show to talk about it, and we definitely encourage our listeners to go out and get this. And like Soraya said, we'll share links. So we definitely recommend this
Yes.
album.
All right. Thanks, you guys. It's been really
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks
so
a lot.
much
Thanks
for
having
joining us
and pushing
today.
me out there.
Appreciate it.
And if you come out with a second record, we'd love to have you guys back on.
When?
All right.
When?
Hey,
fun. It's happening. We're on it. Thank
all
you.
All right.
Soraya. Take care.
Well, go write some more songs
Yeah.
for us.
Will do.
All right.
Okay.
All
Have
right.
a good
Thanks
one.
a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye bye. So, what did you think about those guys, Soraya?
Okay, first of all, I love talking to Vitus, but John cracks me up. Yeah, I just had 2 chords. 2
Yeah.
chords. 2 chords, just 2 chord progressions, just moved on. I really like this project. And I think what I love about it is that it's what Vita said. It's not Trotsky Ice Pick.
No.
And that they knew the songs wouldn't fly, you know?
Yeah.
But they have a lot of depth and substance in the songs. And, you know, look at you and I, we were listening and we didn't know the stories. And now knowing the stories behind them, it adds a whole other dimension to these songs. It's really, I mean, yeah, these, you know, when Vita said, oh, we'll do something a little more cheery. I think that's really impressive that they were able to take a topic that wasn't cheery and make it palatable, like make it, I mean, for lack of a better word, make it enjoyable to listen to.
Yeah. Because the album is definitely not a downer. I'll say that. I get pumped up listening to it and hearing these topics in dealing with suicide and family death and what the tragedy that happened with the fires. And these are tough topics and that make huge impacts on our lives. I mean, these kind of things are universal, right? We've all experienced friends or family that are gone. Here in California, fires are very common, and it's a very scary and real thing that we have to live with here. Yet, listening to this CD, I'm pumped up and happy when I hear it. So I totally get what you're saying here. I mean, it's beyond palatable. It's enjoyable, even though these topics are so heavy and real and impactful.
Right. I think the only one that isn't one of these kind of, you know, really deep topics is Snowshoe,
Yeah.
you know, but I really like what they've done with this. And I have to agree with Vitus. Danny Frankel's drumming really adds, you know, kind of makes it all a really cohesive unit. But man, the guitars on this are so good. We've talked about it before.
Oh yeah.
Just good. And it's beyond me. What did John say? He said, you know, just a couple of years ago he bought an electric guitar and he had stepped away for so long.
Yeah.
And came back and it seems like he didn't skip a beat.
No. I think maybe that added to the energy. So when you step away from something and you miss it and you want to come back and you come back with that full gusto, maybe that's what's happening here with John, where he came back and ready to play music and let's write some songs. I mean, even now, in talking to him today, he sounds very excited about the next project, about the next group of songs. So it's great. You can hear that passion and energy come out in the song. So I am
100%. Yeah.
And we were talking about the artwork earlier, and all of that, the titles, the name of the band, the name of the CD, it all has a certain vibe to it. So I can see this as a totally separate entity. It's a different creative path than any of the projects that these guys are involved with. So
Right.
it's definitely a unique, and you mentioned about the songs. It's a very unique record, and it's its own thing. And I'm really
Yeah.
glad these guys put this together.
You know, I like the point that you made about how when you see that collaborative group output, you know, in albums, it's really appealing because, you know, one, you start to imagine all the work that went in behind it to form it, but also you're really, I think you get a lot of dimension. And so to songs versus, you know, I'm not saying nothing against solo artists at all, because I respect and admire and listen to a lot of them. But I think there's a challenge here in putting 3 people together and coming out with something that's cohesive, strong, and representative, right?
Yeah.
Of the people that are a part of it. And I really liked how you express that. And when I think about Petrified Max, I think we've got that here. A very collaborative team that maybe they don't approach things in the same methodical way, but the output is really strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because definitely when you heard John say, well, I start with the music first and then go to lyrics, and then Vitus says, well, I start with the lyrics and then maybe have like an idea of music, and then it just comes together.
Yeah.
And something really cool comes from that.
Yeah.
I know these guys are great.
Yes. And can we talk
And
about Vitus's singing? I mean,
Vitus is such a good singer, and I don't know why he downplays his vocal abilities, but he's a great singer.
all I have to say is listen to Charlie Drove North. Done. I rest my case. I mean,
There, is it Vitus Mataré as vocalist, ...
exactly.
Charlie Drove North.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So
Very cool. And now we know about his personal bat, his family's personal bat,
yeah.
who
And
inspired the beginning and end of this.
the bookends of this album. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have bats in our neighborhood. In fact, when we were walking in we've been trying to do daily walks, my wife and I, and when we were coming back into the house, a bat flew under our awning, out from underneath our awning into the night sky. And so yeah, we have our little bats in our neighborhood too, that we intentionally try to go out and walk as the sun is starting to come down, because that's when we see the activity. So not a whole lot of them, but we'll see one or two. So yeah, I can appreciate and enjoying seeing the bat. Yeah. All right. Well, this brings us, we're here in the end of July now, Soraya. So we're here in the summer. So
We're hanging tough.
yes, we are. So it's fortunately not a poison summer, right? It's or is it?
I saw what you did there.
I was trying
No,
to make it
no reference to poison or virus or anything. This is
Okay.
a good place, good summer music. It's delightful.
Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh, Jeff, I don't want to end this episode, but gente agruviar.
Groove on, Paisley people.
Don't be scared. It's going to take a minute to convert.
Okay.